the second part that I want to discuss is this cognitive research that's out there. And the starting point of this research is that when we look at kids of this generation, and we look one generation back, we see these kids are looking at these screens, everything's flashing, they're pushing buttons, what's going on? So the idea is, well, we used to just play with sticks, and we used to read books, and we used to draw, we used to play stickball on the street in my days. And now children are just growing up with much more visual stimulation, and what's happening to their brains. And this is actually a really nice illustration, I think. So we have a kid, and his mother says, it's time for you to clean up your room, and all he does is play Tetris all day. And finally, this Tetris can come in handy, right? It's a cute idea because it's a positive influence in video games, right? Now he knows how to clean up his room all tidy because he's been playing Tetris all the time. So there is, in this research, a lot of talk about positive influences of video games, but of course it's on the cognitive scale. It's looking at attentional skills, attention, learning, and cognition. This is a snippet, this is a screen snapshot from research being done in, I believe it's San Diego, maybe San Francisco. Well, using a popular video game called StarCraft, which I'll return to a bit later in the talk. But it's a game that requires a lot of visual attention. They say, well, if people are playing this game, then it's going to be changing these cognitive structures. And so the fields that this gets done in is talking about attention, spatial cognition, problem-solving skills, and I'm going to show you a quick video. It's not for epileptics, but I think that after you see this video, you'll agree that there is something to be said for this idea that people that are engaging in this type of behavior, there probably is some sort of shift in terms of their certain cognitive structures and cognitive skills that they're developing. I'm just going to click play and hang on to your seats. Stop the video because I think that's enough, right? So what that is just somebody trying to break a record of being able to beat this level the fastest way possible. But yeah, what you see there is quite naturally visual attention, multitasking, being able to overcome distractions and focusing on something. So it's pretty interesting to think about these types of questions, of course. Research has been around for quite some time, so that surgeons who used to play video games when they were younger, especially microsurgeons or those that are actually using a joystick to operate cameras, they were less prone to errors because they were used to engaging with things in this way. And on perhaps a deeper level, people also think about ways in which it's changing the way we solve problems. And this is one of the major aspects of video games, that there's always a problem and a challenge that you need to come up with a solution. And maybe it's training our kids to have more non-linear problem solving is the idea. But these are all really interesting ideas, but they don't really get my juices or Isabel's juices really flowing, because in essence it's locking this into just a one-on-one. There's a problem, there's the world around me, how do I attune to it? And it's not really dealing with the social interaction between people. It's all just up here. So it's great research, and there are positive effects to be found there, but it's not where we really see the field going. The third field of research, as I said, is something of a combination of like market research and psychology, trying to figure out who's playing what and why, and when somebody plays, why do they make the choices that they make in the game, why do they make their character look this way, etc. And it's really interesting research. They ask really interesting questions. Why are children playing? Why do teenage boys play with aggressive, violent video games? But there's no real causal inquiry going on here. It's not saying, are video games fulfilling this in people? Is this actually causing a change? It's just saying, well, what do people think the video games is bringing to them? So it's a really fertile ground for hypothesis, to find hypotheses, right? Because you have all these people asking really interesting questions and seeing what is actually happening in the game world, what people are providing self-reports for, but you're not quite getting, again, that causal effect of, is the video game actually making me happier in this aspect of my life? Is this video game actually fulfilling this need that I legitimately have? So, very interesting ground for research, but not quite able to go the step that we wanted to. The fourth camp is, like I said, taking a top-down approach and saying, well, we know all these things about what we need to train our children for, what we need to train people for, how we can educate them and promote health and just positive cognitive skills. And how do we package this in a way that is inspiring to people? How do we put this into a video game context where we know that they'll be engaged? And so there have been educational games around for a really long time. What I want to mention here is kind of a very interesting new breakthrough that's happening in Auckland right now. And this is taking CBT and placing it within a video game context in order to prevent depression in teenagers. So what you see here is actually a snapshot of, maybe I should turn the lens up, hold on. Is it one? It's not all that much better. But what you see here is a snapshot of all these video game characters that you can create in order to play in this game. So what do? Of course, their starting point is from CBT, and they're going to target these assumptions that people make in their everyday life that brings problems in their lives, and the negative automatic thoughts that are underlying why they're behaving poorly. And so this is how it manifests itself from the assumptions to what is going on here. And here at the bottom we see the symptoms that get manifested by having these sorts of thoughts. I find this also very interesting because we see this coming back. This negative automatic thinking is recurring. So this hostile attribution bias that we discussed with the violent video games, it's recurring here. So I think there really is something to be said about the way in which games can really target these expectations that we have on an everyday level. Yeah, I do think I will lower the lights, at least for this video. What this video is actually the creators of this game that's being made that is in production right now. They've already started some RCTs. Describing how this video game works and all of these things about it.
Community as a whole. And we know now that it often starts in adolescence, and there's a very dramatic increase in the rates of depression between the ages of 15 and 18. This is a very important time in young people's development, and so depression can have a major impact on their ability to do schoolwork, when they're establishing social networks, and it's also linked to a number of risky behaviours like use of alcohol and drugs, teen pregnancy and self-harm.
Well, we've been thinking about the digital natives generation, so young people who practically grew up with computers in their home and in the sort of everyday environment. And if you see young people interacting with computers, with games, you kind of see them becoming very engaged and spending a lot of time and having a lot of fun. Sparks is a 3D animated fantasy-based game. It has 7 modules, and each module is linked to a different land. And overall, the aim of the avatar in the game is to save the world from gnats, which are gloomy negative automatic thoughts. Each one of those modules is linked to cognitive behavioural therapy. Through the storyline, we try to demonstrate the principles of cognitive behavioural therapy, and at the end of each module, a guide tells young people how they might put this into practice in the real world.
So that's the idea. You hear what they're saying. It's engaging, it's stimulating. And so because video games are so stimulating, let's employ CBT in this way. And this is just a bit of a snapshot of sort of the different worlds that they discussed. And throughout this game, you go through and you're trying to eliminate what she said. She slurred it, I think. She said, gnats, which are gloomy, negative, automatic thoughts. And this is the enemy that you must defeat in the game. And each one of these corresponds to another pillar of cognitive behavioral therapy. So here we see positive, somebody trying to do something very positive with video games. And again, our approach does diverge from this, and I'm going to get to that shortly. The word of caution that I want to use here, and maybe this will give a good sort of precursor to what our research program is that there is a bit of a danger here in the sense that what they've done is they've invested a lot of time and effort and energy in creating a game, but what you're left is with one product in a sea of video games in an industry that is moving very, very quickly. And the potential danger here is you might create something that's really great now, today, for today's teenagers, for a few years. Maybe you can develop it to be also very engaging at a younger age, so you can catch very native gamers. That could also be really interesting. But it's very, the concern is that what you've done is you've created something that will become obsolete very quickly, and you won't be able to use it in the near future. And that kind of gives way a bit to our approach, to the way that we want to take a look at video games.